A Toronto Star journalist has committed suicide. It's a tragedy. It's a personal tragedy. It's a family tragedy. It's not news in itself. It's personal. Ravina Alec is the victim. May she rest in peace. Her passing should not be news. It's not a matter in the public interest, but the circumstances behind it, I think they are. And that's why I'm talking about it. We don't know a lot about Ravina's final days, but they clearly have to do with the Toronto Star itself, with her bosses, with the corporate culture there, with workplace standards, with management, and with the senior Star manager who used Ravina as his office mistress. Ravina was a young reporter, liberal, progressive, feminist, a perfect fit for the liberal, progressive, feminist Toronto Star. Except their workplace culture is more like something out of Mad Men, where young workers of the office are treated like pieces of meat for the sexual appetites of management. Managers like John Filson, to be precise. He was a senior editor at the Star, married man, but he had an affair with Ravina. Older man, lots of power, younger woman trying to make her name in the business. Absolutely classic power imbalance, the sort of thing that liberal progressive feminists like the Toronto Star say they're against at a racial layer too. That's part of the story here. What liberals claim to believe in public versus how they act in private. If anyone in management at the Star other than Filson knew of this, the Toronto Star is run by a bunch of sexist pigs. Filson was a busy man. He was in charge of the Star's biggest project in years, their $24 million project to build a special tablet edition. 24 million bucks, dozens of employees. It was the Star's Hail Mary pass to save the company in the internet era, because nothing says the future like middle-aged guys walking around reading their news on a big tablet. It's been a huge failure. I don't know if it could ever have worked out, but I'm not sure how much of a chance it had under Filson. How could he pay enough attention to the project if he was married to one woman at home, having an affair with Ravina at work? Oh, and then having another affair with his boss, the Star's managing editor, Jane Davenport. I really don't know how anyone got anything done at the Star with all the bonking going on, all the sexual politics. I mean, newsrooms are political enough as it is, gossip, angst, egos, but this was 3D chess. If you crossed one manager's lover, would you be in trouble? If you wanted a promotion, who should you sleep with? If the reporter in the cubicle next to you was willing to, would you have to do it too to compete? It's like a Hollywood casting couch. You needed a second organizational chart over there to see the real lines of power. I wonder if Filson walked around in a smoking jacket like Hugh Hefner did at the Playboy Mansion. But it's not funny, actually. It's not funny to be the meat being devoured. And certainly Ravina didn't seem to think so. Ravina actually left a suicide note at her desk at the Star, asking that no one talk about her and no one write about her. Her suicide was clearly linked to her workplace and her treatment there. Her last few comments on Twitter look like warnings or cries for help when read today. Here's one: "What a shitty, shitty year already." Then meeting with a doctor who has a specialty in mental health, she praised him for being kind, for his kindness. Sounded like she needed a kind friend more than a medical. And then later that same day she wrote, "Maybe, maybe not, maybe fuck yourself." Mark Wahlberg in The Departed could easily apply to others and much more. For days after her death, the Star sat on the story, refusing to even acknowledge that Ravina had passed away. Filson left the company without saying a word, and Davenport was reassigned. But word leaked out. Today, the Star's public editor wrote a story admitting some of the facts, but covering up others. The Star's reporters are unionized, and they're demanding an independent inquiry. They don't trust Star management to investigate Star management. Of course not, would you? That's the thing, though. Star management knew about these workplace sexual intrigues. They knew about it because they were part of it. Who else knew and approved through their silence? The Star can be quite good at investigating this sort of thing. They were the newspaper that blew the lid off of Jian Ghameshi's culture of misogyny at the CBC, where so many managers were in on it, were covering for him. Remember, it wasn't just Ghameshi's private behavior at home, punching women for the sexual thrill of it. It was how Ghameshi used his show at the CBC as a recruitment center for young women, sometimes from the audience, but also from the intern pool, how he groped staff. The CBC knew and didn't do anything about it. Actually, they supported it with a war room-style group of men who were tasked with discrediting Ghameshi's accusers. Must have been ironic to all those Toronto Star reporters writing about the sexualization of Ghameshi's workplace, writing those stories from the Star's sexualized workplace. So who will investigate the Star? not just to investigate what Filson and Davenport did, but the rest of them. I make fun of unions for journalists, but if you were a young woman working for the Star, maybe a union was the only people you could count on to protect you. Or maybe not. The media union didn't stop Ghomeshi, and the union's call for an investigation of the Star only now, only after Ravina is dead, well, it sounds about as authentic as O.J. Simpson trying to find the real killers. The Star is silent, so is Filson. I bet he got a pretty significant golden handshake with a very strict don't talk clause. Not out of respect for Ravina, we know how she was treated. The Star and Filson are not talking for reasons of liability. What was done by Star managers to her? How did they treat her? Did she ever ask them for help? Who could she even trust there? Could she have asked Jane Davenport, Filson's boss, for help? But she was the other mistress. Given the power imbalance, given the toxic workplace, seriously, how could you trust anyone to do the right thing? If you had a problem at work, who could you talk to? Was there someone else sleeping with someone else, a rival sex triangle that had more management power? Can you imagine working there? Especially if you're a 22-year-old single woman fresh out of journalism school. Yeah, the Star is quiet because their company had a role in this. If I were Ravina's family, I would sue the living daylights out of these fake feminists. $24 million sounds like a good number. And I hope Mrs. Filson, who is a victim here too, including at the hands of Ravina, by the way, well, I hope she takes every penny she can get. The rest of us, it's just more evidence that liberals don't mean it. Like environmentalists who fly in private jets, these feminists don't mean it. Jian Ghomeshi wasn't really a feminist, he just said he was to cover up the fact that he beat women. The Star isn't really liberal and progressive. It values women of color for the sexual services they can provide management, and when they cover it up, and they still are. Ravina, rest in peace. For the Rebel.media, I'm Ezra Levant.